the whole mantra is you got to fix yourself. And I go, stop trying to fix yourself. The key is to be yourself. Don't ask what's wrong with me. Ask what's wrong with what I believe. What's wrong with how I was treated? What's wrong with who I'm following?
Hey everyone, welcome to Ask the Podcast with Alka. I'm so grateful. Thank you to each and every one of you who come back week in and week out to listen, learn, and grow. And I am so grateful for your valuable time. Now, as my commitment to you, as my community and my audience is to help find people who are making an impact, who are helping us to live a life more deeper and meaningful. And my guest today, Doug Dane, is a survivor of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse and violence, and has gone on to create a life of freedom. Now, for the past 30 years, Doug has helped thousands of entrepreneurs and business owners and has recently spent the past 8 years under the wing of Bob Proctor, heading the division of Proctor Gallagher Institute. Doug, welcome to the show. Thank you for joining.
I'm glad to be here. Thank you.
So, Doug, I do want to start off with talking about your book. First of all, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah.
And the book, Mistaken Identity, Stop Hiding, Start Living, A Guide to Letting Go. Absolutely. Now, for most of us, we've gone through traumas, challenges, adversities in our lives. And it is so hard to let go of the past.
Mm-hmm. We think it's hard. I thought it was hard. It's not as hard as we think it is, but we make it hard.
We make it hard. Absolutely. Make it hard. And I can truly resonate in the chapter in your book, I've Had Enough. Because in my marriage, I was ostracized from the family. I was not made to be fit in when the family was around, or friends and family. I was ostracized. And that was such a traumatic part of my life because my family were in the UK and I was here in Canada alone and in the marriage alone because I wasn't made to fit in. Now, we don't always have to fit in, but when you are faced with that trauma, now for me, it was more verbal abuse every single time.
Right.
And so when I published my first book, Cocoon to CEO, Living the Life of Your Dreams, I had butterflies on the cover to depict freedom. Mm-hmm. Because for me, that was freedom. I had the wings to fly and I could live my life. And in your book, you talk about ego and mm-hmm. how sometimes ego, when we want to change our life, the ego will always come into play. And as Bob Proctor says, your paradise, that's what holds you back. You want to achieve the success, you want to have the future that you want, but your ego keeps you down.
Yeah, people, listen, I didn't understand anything that you're talking about right now up until a number of years ago. I was in business, since 89, I got into business and was trying to, figure it out, failed miserably in the beginning, but became, successful. But I was brought up, at least in the business world, learning certain things about being, successful and achieving results. And I think we all feel like we can always be doing better and doing more, but I did not understand a number of things I now understand, which made it so much easier. And Bob always said, he said, the only problem we have in the world is ignorance. And what he meant was we just have lack of awareness. We don't understand. So very few people understand this notion of ego. They've heard the word ego, but they think in the confines of, well, he's got such a big ego and she's egotistical. That's not what it is at all. And we really have to understand what's really controlling us. I've spent, like you said in the intro, I've talked to thousands of people, literally, one-on-one. I mean, I just spend my days talking to people, trying to help people.
Mm.
And I was trying to figure out for myself why I wasn't doing as well as I thought I could be doing. And I was doing pretty well. I just couldn't figure it out. And then I figured out, and talking to all these people, I now know unequivocally, without fail, no amount of self-help, no books, no course, no seminars, none of that is really going to work unless you clear up this mistaken identity that you have. You see yourself a certain way, like in your case, being ostracized, in a marriage and by your family, it erodes your perspective or your opinion of yourself. I mean, first off, people had the wrong opinion of you. They didn't really know you. And then they drill in their opinions. And our ego, it doesn't like change. Our ego
No,
is defined by our history and our upbringing, and the ego likes to stay safe.
like
I
safe,
don't want
yes.
I don't want any change. And if you set out to make changes, your ego, it's like your ego's not a thing, but I relate to it. I call it my cellmate. You get stuck in an emotional prison, and your
Right.
cellmate just does not want you to leave. You're trying to break out, and it doesn't want you to leave. You hatch your
It wants to
prison.
protect you. It wants to protect you.
Well, protect itself. Not really protect. You don't need protecting. Our authentic self doesn't need protecting. We don't need to protect our emotions and protect ourselves or anything like that. But that's what the ego convinces us that we need to do. So.
Did your journey begin? Who is Doug Dane? And how did your journey begin?
Well, it began at the very beginning. It's is in the book. Is at 6 months old, I was given up for adoption. Well, I was given up for adoption right away as a baby, as an infant, a newborn, and then I spent the first 6 months in a foster care home, and then I was adopted by a really violent alcoholic family. So the first 15 years of my life was just violence, emotional abuse, physical abuse, a lot of violence. Watching my parents, they were very violent alcoholic people, beating each other up and beating us, and it was really really bad. And then when my parents split, I was just free to run the streets, and I ended up hanging out all kinds of places, skipping school, and got hooked up with this ring of pedophiles. And so 13 through 15 I was sexually abused, and then that ended my kidnapping at 15. And then naturally you turn to coping mechanisms. For me, it was drugs and alcohol. Turned to that, and I grew up in a very poor family, so I was working in factories and different jobs. And then I got the bright idea I wanted to be in the business. And my dad had passed away, left some money, so I got into business with this really awful guy I didn't know at the time. And I blew all the money that my dad had left me, went bankrupt, landed back on my feet. And then I went to a seminar. It was a weekend seminar in Toronto, and it was called "You Were Born Rich" with a guy named Bob Proctor. I'd never heard of him. I had to borrow the money for the ticket, and I went to that seminar, and I learned some things I didn't know, and I figured out at least how to earn money, and so I became successful in business. But I struggled most of my life internally, just not really feeling good about myself. A lot of anxiety, depression, a lot of second guessing, a lot of negative talk, a lot of chatter in my head. Uh,
Mhm.
and just really, really struggled. Now, you wouldn't have known it in the business world because I looked like I had it all together, and I was doing well. But internally, I became a really good actor, pretending that I had it all together. And I struggled through relationships, marriages failing. Oh, I was wrecking them. I became my father. I became a philanderer. And I really, really struggled. It was really hard because deep down, I'm a really nice, genuine, authentic guy. I was authentic in every area of my life but relationships. And I couldn't figure what the hell's wrong with me. And I kept saying that. And I was 39 years old, and my second marriage failed. And I was in marriage counseling, and the counselor was asking me questions. She like they ask you the family history questions,
Right.
and I couldn't answer them. And she said, I think there's some trauma and abuse in your background. I go, and she knew because it was all blocked out. There must have been something because I
Yes.
had the memory. I go, there's not. Well, you might want to take a look at your past if you want to stop screwing up your future. And so I did this investigation, and I went back. So, but the story I just told you up to 30, that was all blocked out. I didn't remember really anything. And I met police officers and the detectives and teachers and family and friends. I got my records from Children's Aid and my adoption records, all these records. And I put this whole story together, and then I went public with it. And I
Right.
felt that the key to letting go of all this junk of how I felt, because now I had the story. Now I go, oh, no wonder I feel the way I feel. No wonder I've been doing what I've been doing. I got excited. I thought, man, I got to get this out there.
Right.
So I went public in the national news. I was on television and a newspaper, books, and then I was speaking about it. And then everybody was pursuing me, going, how did you do it? And I couldn't tell you how I did it. I could tell you what I did, but I couldn't transfer it to you. And then my heart really was breaking because I had all these people that I couldn't help. I
Hmm.
wanted to, and I was doing my best. I was trying to help them and support them. And then I got into working with Bob, and I was, coaching people all around the world. And it just this message, this mistaken identity, just kept coming back to me over and over. I go, I think they're mistaken about how they see themselves, because I was mistaken. I met Bob, and he saw something in me that I
Right.
felt, but I didn't believe in. But he believed in me, and he just
Hmm.
got me to see it. And then I did see it, and then I started to basically start being myself, and I started to become free. And so I just pursued how to do it, and I wanted to put it in some format that I could give it to you, where you could duplicate what I had done. And the only real method I could come up with, it was fast, was a book, and so that's why I wrote the book.
But Doug, I absolutely love the title Mistaken Identity because, as you said, most of us, we're living two parts of our lives. Um, we don't know what is that identity. We know who we need to be. We know what we need to be doing, but
Mm-hmm.
we tend to go a different direction, and we're not, like I said, we're not authentic. And you need
Right.
to be authentic. And I was having this conversation with a friend yesterday, and we were talking about your to be authentic, to be the person that you are wanting to be as a woman. CEOs, we need to be authentic,
Yes.
and yet we go through life thinking we need to be this person. We need to be a different person.
Mm-hmm.
And as Bob Proctor, he teaches us that, you need to be authentic. Your paradigms will always come in your way. It
Mm-hmm.
was that trample the terror barrier.
Right.
At the moment you try to strive for success. Now, did you have any setbacks, or were there any barriers that you faced when you first started, when you got into business?
Oh no, never.
Never. Oh, no, never.
Not a one. No, of course. Yeah, listen,
Of
two
course,
points.
yeah.
Yeah, no, of course. Listen, a couple things. This notion of authenticity, it's a really nice buzzword. You
Yeah.
should be more authentic, Alka. Well, that's not that simple, because we don't really understand why we're not. Um,
But what is authenticity? What is authentic?
here's my version of it. I think the problem is when you were little, and kind of take you through the first part of the book is explaining why
Yes,
you're not
yes.
authentic.
Hmm.
And so when you were little, you got programmed with all these biases and prejudice and rules and values, and you know what I'm talking about from your upbringing. And when you're at first, you're an imitation. You're imitating the adults. So we eat what they eat. We talk the way they
Yes.
talk. But when they get your attention, they can see they have your attention. That's when they start driving in the rules, values, and beliefs. And they're judging you. If you don't get it right, then you're judged. You're punished. You're criticized. You're yelled at, teased, whatever. And you were also seeing them judge everybody. So they were judging others. They're judging each other. They're judging family, friends, the neighbors. They're judging you. And so then you start judging yourself.
Right.
And very early on, it fosters this idea that there's something wrong with you. And you
Uh-huh.
start to feel inauthentic. You start to feel off track. And you have no control over it. You're just little and you're just thinking, oh, this is the deal. And so very early on, we get knocked off course of our own authenticity. And then there's a couple things that are going on, and it's more dominant than ever before. There was a real strong compulsion for conformity. You were expected to conform and to
Mm.
fit in. And what will the neighbors think,
Yes.
and then that, of course, bred a fear of criticism, worrying what people will think. And so we stopped stepping up and stepping out and showing up because what will people think? And I want to fit in. I don't want to upset my family, my friends, or whatever. And so that's why we got off track. So, and then today's world, in the world of books and self-help and personal development and podcasts and social media, all this stuff, right? The whole mantra is you got to fix yourself. And I go, stop trying to fix yourself. The key is to be yourself. Don't ask what's wrong with me. Ask what's wrong with what I believe. What's wrong with how I was treated? What's wrong with who I'm following? That's a
Interesting.
that's a better question to ask. And so, of course, to the other point of your question, of course, I went through obstacles and failures. But here's what I did not know.
But then who doesn't?
Well, yeah, but we that's another we have a poor understanding of failure. I love failure because failure and temporary defeat is called course correcting. I didn't know this, but now I know. My mind is a goal seeking mechanism. My mind directs my brain and my nervous system. I'm in control of my mind. And if I meet with temporary defeat or failure, that's like a sign on the highway, road closed, go the other way. Now, I didn't know that because failure to me was, oh, you're such a failure. You're such a loser. And of course, I grew up saying that to myself. Why? Because I felt that way about myself because of how I was treated. And then, of course, I was making mistakes that backed up the very belief that I had.
And that's why, Doug, affirmations are so powerful, is what we affirm to ourselves that truly makes us believe that we are, or it doesn't. So when you affirm it, like for me, like first thing in the morning is I do affirmations.
Right.
What do I believe in myself? How do I set myself up for the day
Right.
to make it the day? So Doug, I really commend you for everything that you have accomplished and the book that that is out, Mistaken Identity. And friends, you got to check out the book, and we'll drop the link later, Doug, so you can let people know where they can buy your book.
Right.
But so we've talked about the ego and how the ego loves to keep us in that safe space because it doesn't like threat. The moment we try to change, etc. So I want to talk about the traumas and the challenges and adversities that people go through, that you have gone through, and I
Mhm.
want to touch on especially the sexual abuse, because any kind of abuse, whether it's physical abuse or sexual abuse, it is so hard. I know for myself, so I can truly attest to that. It was very difficult for me to let go. Now, the question to you is, Doug, was there personality type that was there a cause that you had, perhaps a personality type, when you were faced with sexual abuse? Did you
So I'm not sure I
find
understand the
did
question.
you find that there was a certain personality type that you were portraying?
Oh, I see. That's an interesting question. Um, I think I've never really thought about it that way. I think I would say that I was definitely, for me personally, I was definitely trying to pretend like I had it all together for sure. I think, well, as I think about this now, I think it's very common. In fact, I was doing some research because I wrote an article for CEO World, and they were asking me, some questions for the article. And I did some research around the success of CEOs that have experienced childhood trauma or adverse childhood experiences, and a high percentage of them were very, very successful because I think it turns you into this, real type A potentially, a real hard charger, probably potentially a workaholic, always just trying to perform and to validate yourself.
Mhm.
I think I was searching for validation to make myself feel good about myself through my results, through my work. And then for me, I just needed love and validation from a relationship to make me feel good, because I never got any of that as a kid, and I had no sense of it. So I think I was really starving for that, and I realized I had that all wrong. I didn't need love and validation from anybody. That was a
Use it from
big,
yourself. Yeah.
yeah, it was a big, well, I needed it for myself, but I was actually going to the wrong place for it, you know?
Find it. Yes.
Yeah. And so I think those were probably some traits that, and experiences that I had.
What would you say, Doug, was the catalyst? What was the catalyst for the change when you were starting out? Did you reflect back on the in of your past, your past traumas? Did you reflect on the past? And if so, what was that catalyst that actually got you to the change, got you to live a life of freedom?
I think there was, throughout the whole story, I think there was three critical turning points. Obviously, at 39, the discovery that there was this story in my past I blocked
Right.
out.
Uh-huh.
That was a big explanation, of course, right? Um, and that was 2001. And then it was until 2013 that I started learning through Bob Proctor again. And I went to work for him in 2014. And that was a big shift too, because Bob, of course, knew the story. It was public at that point. We had talked about it. And he just kept saying, Doug, he said, just let it go. Stop talking about the past. Bob, you don't really understand. And I said, yeah, okay, Doug, whatever. And and I didn't think he really understood, because he didn't go through what I went through.
Yes.
I mean, he had a rough life as a Depression era kid and all that, but I didn't think he really understood it, and he just kept hammering away. But one of the catalysts, of course, was in working with him. As I said earlier, I discovered that I could take responsibility for my anxiety, my depression, and all my mistakes and challenges, that I was in control of my thinking. And I got really, I mean, that was a slap in the face at first, because Bob really slapped me in the face. And because he said, Doug, this is all your fault. It's all your problem. Nobody's going to do anything about it but you. And I go, he's right. And so I took control of my thinking, and then things really started to change. But it wasn't really until it was literally summer of 2021. I was in his office, and I was talking about this mistaken identity for years. And I was seeing like everybody I was talking to was struggling with the same problem, regardless of whether they were wealthy or poor, happy or miserable, whatever. And but I was still struggling. He said, Doug, he said, you're still letting this stuff get under your skin. I go, no, I'm not. He goes, yes, you are. I go, no, I'm not. He goes, go look in the mirror. And if you saw my face a couple of years ago, my skin was very red and blotchy, rosacea. He goes, literally, people are getting under your skin. I go, bugger.
Oh, wow.
And then he said, listen, he said, Doug, this is so simple. I've been telling you, it's so simple. It's so misunderstood. You're making it so complicated, and you're taking too long with this. This could be instant if you'll accept the idea that it can be. And in that moment, I go, he's right. And then it's like the dominoes, everything fell into place. It just clicked. And that ever since then, I've just been telling people, listen, I wasted way too much time trying to figure this out. I took way too long. I made it too friggin' hard. I said, listen, I'm going to put this together in a book, because I now know how easy it is. And it is. And that was the big, because I'm 59. I was 57 at the time. And go, man, oh man, I'm wasting so much time. Life is
Time
short.
is precious. Yeah, time is
Yeah,
precious. Time is
yeah.
short.
So that was a wake up call for sure.
Exactly. Well, all of us, we have to go through a wake up call, to really push us, to really help us and guide us. Okay, what are we waiting for? What is that life that we want to create? What is that freedom, that life of freedom? What does that look like?
Mhm.
And for most of us, we can spend, like I said, you spend a lot of time sticking and holding on to that negativity, holding on to the past
Yeah.
that doesn't really serve us.
Yeah, well, it's a common problem. Of course, I experience, most people do, is that our society and the way we were raised, we were taught a few things. We were taught to worry about the future, but we can't control how the future is going to happen.
Exactly.
We're definitely taught to dwell in the past and dredge up the past and make ourselves and other people feel guilty and ashamed for the past. It's a habit, right? We
It's
just
a habit. Hmm.
right? And what we do, in the present moment, when you're not focused on the past, the future, when you're sitting in the present moment, you start to get these ideas and these inspirations of what you'd like to do or who you like to be, or in my case, how I want to make a difference in the world. You get these ideas, but then the habit is we go to the past as a reference point to predict the future, and we talk ourselves out of the very thing that hit our heart. And that's what we got to get straight. You got to get this right. Is that if you want to do something or be something, and it's really on your heart, you must be that person already. Otherwise, you would not want it. You got to get that straight. But because of your mistaken identity and your experiences and all your evidence of the past, it's very easy for you to use that as a reference to predict and plan your future, and then you don't.
You got to, absolutely, you've got to be that person. It's not the other way around. You don't have
Right.
to have or do, you got to be.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. But we're so locked into this, this perception of ourselves. And if you're really honest, like if you're listening to this or you're watching this, if you're really honest with yourself, and I just, you said people need to have a wake up call. I think sometimes we're responsible to slap people in the face and wake them up, because if I got that happened to me. I was lucky. I got the wake up call. I got the slap in the face. I don't know how long it would have taken to figure this out. But we, what was I going to try to say there? Oh, I lost my point. You were talking about being.
Yeah, you got to be the person in order to have what you want, in order to have the life of freedom.
Yeah, geez, I had a beautiful point. I lost it. That happens. No, I don't
Yep.
say that's what I would say. If you're listening to this or watching this, you got to be honest with yourself. If you got to be honest with yourself to start. And if you're honest with yourself, you probably would say that you don't really have a good opinion of yourself, or you have some negative self-talk going on, or if you have any of that going on inside, okay, you got to get this straight. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just things that are wrong that you believe or wrong that you experience. And we really got to get straight with ourselves and take a really honest inventory and do what I call a blameless autopsy. An autopsy is you try to figure out the cause of death. Well, maybe we need to be born again and just take a look at, okay, why do I feel the way I feel about myself? And that's kind of what I try to do in the book, is get you to kind of unravel that, and then just basically create your own rules and values and standards, and live your life the way, like, just to be yourself. That's the ticket. It's all about being yourself, but we're afraid to be ourselves because we want to conform and we're worried what people think. And you got to break free of that, because that's what's really causing people a lot of problems.
That's true, and that's where people need to have that shift. And you talked, Doug, just now about people need to. So that identity piece, I really want to focus on that. So your identity, you are born with a certain identity, and how do people change? I mean, as we in adulthood, as we get older, we tend to change, to be a different identity, whereas we don't need to. And that's how we get mistaken, and that's how we as you said, we're not true to ourselves, because we are one person and then we're trying to be a different person.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, it's very common and typical. I think it's very rare that you get the benefit of being brought up in a family where your parents and the adults around you are aware of this, and you grow up confident. It happens once in a while, but it's very, very rare. And you listen, you're a unique individual when you arrive here. There's nobody like you. I was watching Arnold Schwarzenegger. He was being interviewed by his daughter about Father's Day, and his daughter was asking him about, what are the greatest insights he has as a father? He goes, what's the most surprising thing to me was all four of you children were all raised the same way in the same house, da, 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 da. All four of you were all was raised the same, but you're all so different, you
Mm.
know. And we are all so different, but then we get pigeonholed, or
Yes.
we get like that story, the pumpkin in the jar, like where a little pumpkin, a farmer poked a little pumpkin in a jar, and the pumpkin grew to the exact size and shape of the jar, right? And we're all like, we poke ourselves into jars of our own making, or so I think that's what happens to us, and then we feel, we're stuck literally in a jar, right? And we're stuck as this person, and we have to just we have to become aware of this. Like that's what I'm trying to do with mistake and identity, is try to get you to understand why are you feeling off? Why don't you feel like yourself? Why won't you be yourself? Why are you questioning yourself? Why don't you like yourself? Why do you have self-loathing, shame, guilt, resentment? Why do you have all that stuff? And I explain it quite simply as to where it came from. So when you understand, where you got to go, oh, that's why the book's so effective, because you just go, this is so simple, And then what you can do is then you can change. You have to change your mind. And listen, as humans, we're just habitual. We're lazy and we're habitual. We just want to get up and survive. We
Right.
just tiptoe through the day and just try to
Mm-hmm.
make it to the end.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it's in our nature. Now that's in our nurture. In our nature, on our heart, is we want to grow, and we have these desires, and we want to express ourselves, and we just want to be who we are, and just stretch our legs, and fly, and create, be a successful, leader, whatever it is, and then it's no wonder we're frustrated with ourselves, because we're stuck in the jar, and we don't know how we got in the jar, and we don't know how to break the jar. And so we just accept that's what life is like. But then one day you wake up and you figure it all out, and you go, oh, can't believe I wasted all this time worrying what people were thinking, and da da da. And then you fall asleep, you're dead. Like
Exactly.
we
Time
wait too
wasted.
long. Yeah. So
So, Doug, why can't people follow through with what they truly want? Why is it? What happens to people at that moment that they want to strive, they want to go through? Like you said, people are very relaxed, they're very chilled. They just
yeah,
want to, they're just surviving just that moment.
yeah,
But they know that they want more. But what happens to people? What happens in that moment? Why is it that they can achieve what they
yeah.
want?
Listen, it's frustrating. I got frustrated. I didn't understand. So, like again, very few people. I didn't know. Like I spent 25 years in business and succeeding very well. I was at the top of my industry in the country here in Canada. I was doing well, but I did not know how my mind actually worked. And so we operate really from an unconscious, habitual perspective. We're like our mind is a machine. It's like a thermostat. It's programmed and it just runs. If the temperature goes up, the air conditioner comes on. If the temperature cools down, the furnace comes on, and it regulates our life. And so when you go to make a move or make a change, like for example, I'm so tired of hearing everybody talk about how to change habits. Very few people understand how to form habits, because they don't understand the habitual mind, which is the subconscious. And so it's habitual, automatic, right? And so just when you go to do something, like say, I don't know, start a business, or expand your business, or take that, you think about that risk you want to take. I got a meeting today. I'm going to Toronto. I got a meeting. We're planning to make some moves, right? Some big moves. But and even for me and many others, the old subconscious, the psyche, the ego, that false self, mistaken identity goes, Doug, what the hell are you thinking?
Exactly. It
I
doesn't
wouldn't
want you to
even
put your
bother
hold your
going to
back.
Toronto. Like, I mean, skip the meeting. I don't even know why you're driving down there and spending 3 hours. What the hell are you wasting your time for? And that's what it does to us. We have to recognize it. We have to know, my ego, my false self, my mistaken identity. It's like do you remember the Flintstones?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes,
remember the
absolutely.
Fred, the devil and the angel, right?
Yeah.
That's what it's like, right? And so we got to listen to the angel, because the angel tells the truth. And the angel, it always, whatever the angel tells us, it feels good. That's how you know. You follow what feels good. And
So follow your
yeah,
intuition.
yeah. Well, it's just which is
That's
your intuition is a tool that connects you to your heart and to spirit, and you regulate it by feeling. And so you follow the feeling. So if you have a good feeling about something, even though you're scared, even though you have no evidence you can do it, even though your track record shows you're an idiot for trying, you got to follow the heart. You got to follow the feeling and pursue that. And then if you can take one step, one action, then you're going to get a reaction that confirms. It's called the boomerang effect or cause and effect. You create a cause that's positive from a positive feeling, and then you get a positive reaction to the action, and you go, and then you're on the right track, and then you make another move. But same time, that cellmate's yapping away. Don't do it, Alka. You're nuts. You know.
Doug, did you believe that you could have the life of freedom? I know you said that finally you achieved that, you had the life of freedom, but did you believe? It's one thing to have the life of freedom and the traumas that you've gone through, but
Yeah.
did you believe that you could have the life of freedom?
Well, I love Neil Donald Walsh. He defined it as wishing, hoping, believing, and knowing. I definitely wished. I definitely hoped. And I think at an
But
intellectual
you
level,
haven't. But you haven't.
yeah, now, but at an intellectual level, I did believe it, but at a gut, I didn't really believe it. Like, because at the gut level, at the subconscious level, all the junk lies in there. You when you just if you ask somebody that question, they go, "Yeah, I really believe." But when you trigger the belief in what you want, it also triggers like poking a sleeping bear, right? And then I got to a point of knowing how this works, and that built up my belief. So when you know how this works, and you know how your mind works, and you know how your ego works, and you know how your mistaken identity works against you, you keep pursuing in spite of it. Do I have up and down days? You bet I do. You know, but there's nothing wrong with that. I get depressed, but there's nothing wrong with it. I'm up, I'm down. The sun goes up, the sun goes down. That's life. That's normal. It's just I don't quit anymore.
Mhm. Exactly. And that's the worst that can happen. And when we quit on our goals, we quit on our success. So it's taken that quantum leap. Like, you're endeavoring into a business, you've got a meeting later on, but that's the quantum leap that you want to strive for and that everybody needs to strive for.
Yeah.
And so what we're talking about is that mistaken identity, and not to let that mistaken identity, that ego that will come out, that will prevent you from doing things, that will prevent you from living the life of freedom, that will prevent you doing so many things, but then not to quit.
Yeah. But there's one big mistake that we are also taught to do that we make very often is we go ask other people for their opinion.
Yes. And
And
that's not always a right opinion, as we know.
no, because they have a viewpoint on you and they have a
Yes.
viewpoint on what you want to do from their own mistaken identity. And then we were just taught to go ask people for their opinion, and you'll ask people for their opinion, and they don't even know what the hell they're talking about.
But
But
they
you,
don't know what they're doing as well. They might not
yeah,
be, yeah.
yeah. But we just want some validation from somebody else, you know.
And that's not always the right thing. Absolutely. I agree. We seek in validation absolutely all the time, every single
Yeah.
day. But it's to follow that, as you said, follow your gut, your inner voice that tells you that's the right thing. And if that's the right thing, because I know that was me about 10 years ago, I was stuck in my own paradigms, my limiting beliefs. Oh, can I do this? Can I be successful? No, I would. And the moment I would know that I'm striving for that success, that inner voice will tell me, no, Alka, I don't think you can. No, I don't think so. And then I will start to believe that. And that
Yeah.
is the trap that we all fall in,
Yeah.
is second guessing and those limiting beliefs that hold us back from achieving.
I'm glad you brought that up because I was just before you finished that and said second guessing, I was thinking about, I call it first guessing.
Okay.
So, listen, you, me, a lot of people, we think that our gut and our intuition got us into trouble. No, you gotta drop that idea. People do this all the time. They go, on one hand, I was thinking I would do this, but on the other hand, maybe I should do this, or maybe I should do that. I was going to do this, and I always say it's called second guessing. Okay.
Uh-huh.
It's
Uh-huh.
not called first guessing.
Right.
You should go with your first guess, not your second guess. Maybe I should do this. That's it. Don't
Mhm.
go, okay. It's not called first guessing. It's called second guess. So if you're second guessing, go with the first guess.
Right.
It's because everything we do, you got to understand that your mind. If I have an idea, that's the first guess, right? I get this idea, it just hits me. I conceive of an idea. If that idea goes against my experience, my self worth, my beliefs, anything like that, immediately it creates a second guessing, and that's your sign. That's your clue.
That's your clue.
That's your clue. I'm on the right track. Otherwise, I wouldn't be second guessing.
But we do second guess to keep us safe. We second guess.
Well, but everybody second guessed us. I watch parents a lot. The kids running across the street or down the road. Don't get hurt, Doug. And I go, let them fall. Like we were second guessed right from the very beginning when we were little.
That
You know?
protection. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it didn't protect us at all. I mean, listen, there's some things for sure you got to keep your kids safe from, but man, oh man, we are keeping kids. We're not protecting them at all. We're setting them up for failure. You know.
Why'd you say that?
Well, because you're limiting them. You're if listen, if I'm 5 years old and I just want to run, you know, and my mom says, "Don't run too fast. You're going to hurt yourself." I mean, they're silly examples, but we don't pay attention to this, and so
Mm.
we just keep constricting our growth and restricting, and we build fear up in our children's minds. I think kids are second guessing themselves more than ever, and I think it's getting worse. I think we got to let. I don't think we should be passing on rules, values, and beliefs to our children. I think we should just help our children form their own rules, values, and beliefs that suit them. Now, there's some
Mhm.
rules, values, like don't run into a middle of an intersection. That's a good rule, but we shouldn't be passing along. We shouldn't be instilling our beliefs into children.
Into children, right?
We should just let the children form their own beliefs. I think we should just find out who they are, pay
Mhm.
real close attention to who they are, and help them become that person.
Absolutely. I agree with that because children are not also made to think.
Right.
A lot of times, parents or grandparents are thinking for the child,
Yes.
and they don't know, and so they get lost.
Yeah.
Whether in school or in the outside world, children are lost because they don't know how to think because that thinking, that process has been instilled by the parent or the grandparents.
Yeah. Do you ever wonder why there's so many adults who are struggling in the world? Because they're still kids. It's called adult childhood syndrome. They're,
Interesting.
they're
Expand on that, please. That is so interesting. Yes.
well, one of my chapters in my book is called "Grow Up." Like
Mhm.
I had to grow up. I was acting like a kid. I was being childish or childlike.
Uh-huh.
Childish. And what happens is, young people basically they're not taught to think for themselves. That they're not taught to make decisions. Their parents. I mean, I have clients. Their parents are dead, and their parents are still influencing them. You know, and so we're very childish in the way we approach our adult lives. We're reactive. We act out. We yell. We scream. We get angry. We hurt people. We're very childish. There's just a bunch of adults or a bunch of kids walking around in adult bodies, and now they're
Right.
raising children. Now that's really harsh, but it's true. If you're honest with yourself, we gotta grow up. And because especially if you're raising children, you got to grow up, because all you're doing is you're just passing on to your kid. Now, listen, I know you're doing your best. My parents, I don't have any blame towards my parents. I mean, they had a tough life. I mean, they came from a tough place, and it's no wonder they treated themselves and each other and ultimately me the way that they did. I don't blame them. It's not their fault. But I made my mind up. I wasn't going to repeat that. Listen, I could have become an alcoholic. I could have become a child abuser. I could have become, a man that molested boys. I mean, the man that molested me, that's what happened to him.
Right.
But we gotta
You
grow
you
up.
chose that path. You chose
Yeah,
that path not to go that way.
that's right. Yeah, that was a conscious choice. I
Mhm.
could have easily went that way. So
We all have a choice, Doug. We all have a choice. And I love what you just said. Your parents, the way they brought you up, whether, that it was violence, and it was violence in the home growing up, because they weren't taught any better because of their parents.
exactly.
There was that lineage.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's what happens, whether it's the father projects onto his wife because of how his father had done unto him. And so it's very unfortunate. And so I want to talk about the identity, because even as children, they as we agree that they are lost. And as even as parents, they are childish, they're childlike internally in an adult body.
Mhm.
But how can, as viewers, people listening, how can, if they know this is what they are projecting, this is what they are doing or feeling, how can they begin to change?
Well, I'm biased because I try to put the answers together in this book, but um, the way I designed the book, and really the process I went through, is I had to learn, and then I had to unlearn, and then I had to relearn. And so the first thing is we're talking a lot about this here. We're learning about our behaviors and the challenges we face because of we're mistaken about how we see ourselves, and because of all the judgment, and in your case being ostracized and or mistreated or whatever you went through as a kid, right? That helps to explain why you don't quite feel right about yourself. And there's nothing wrong with you. As I said, what's wrong is just the wrongs that you believe about yourself. And so that's the first stage. Now, the traditional path that most people take, the narrative in our society since about the 50s is go to your doctor and get pills or go to therapy.
Right. Exactly.
And that clearly isn't working, because our mental health system is worse than ever, not because of what's going on in the world. It's because the system has perpetuated more mental health problems.
So
Okay.
is the system broken, would you say?
Yes.
Hmm.
Yeah, because in our model, we're not going after the cure, the cause of
Yes.
our anxiety, depression. We're just masking it up, and we're living with our anxiety and depression.
Right.
I had severe anxiety and depression, and I rid myself of it. Okay. Because I went after the root cause. Why was I anxious? Anxiety is just simply fear of the future. That's all it is. And why do we worry about the future? Because we don't believe in ourselves, or we don't like ourselves, or we don't feel good at it, or we have guilt and resentment because we dwell on the past, and we have shame. One of the chapters in the book is called "You Should Be Ashamed." Right? We heard that as a kid. You should be ashamed, Alka. I can't believe you did that. You should be ashamed. And so we live with shame. Shame is a temporary emotion. Okay, it's not a permanent emotion. It's supposed to be temporary. Shame is actually a useful emotion that basically is used to bring your attention or consciousness to some impropriety, or some shortcoming, something that is really wrong. And so it's good to be ashamed. I did something wrong, but then I correct, but I don't carry on the shame, right? And so what we got to do is, I don't think we should go the traditional route. I mean, therapy can be good to kind of uncover the story. You can learn, like I did, and go, But then we have to unlearn all the junk that was drilled into us as a kid. Like one of the chapters called The Big Con. We were conned to believe things.
Right.
Another chapter is called Poison. Stuff was just poured down our throats, and we were made to swallow it. It happens in cultures. It happens to women. It happens to boys, to girls. I mean, all this stuff. And so we have to unlearn, and then we relearn. And basically, what we do is we just make up our own rules. There's only 3 sets of rules you should follow. Okay, you shouldn't follow man-made rules. You should follow God-made rules. You should follow the rules of nature. Okay, like if I let this go, it does not fall up; it falls down. Okay, that's a rule of nature, right?
Gravity.
There's rules of nature that we have to follow. One of them I mentioned, cause and effect. Put out good, you get good back. And then the other rules are the ones that we make up that suit us, so we feel good about ourselves, and that we fit into the world the way we want to fit in, so we can do what we want to do while we're in this world. And that's the process. It's just learn, unlearn, and relearn. So over 30 chapters and 30 principles, I give you, and each chapter is like 5 minutes long. It's very short. I make a really strong point. I try to change your mind. I use my story to get your attention, change your mind. And then while I got your mind changed, I get you to take an action step. I get you to either answer a question or take an action step. And over 30 days or 30 chapters, I just get you to move and change your mind. Move and change your mind. Move and change your mind. Learn, unlearn, relearn. And then very quickly go, man, I can't believe I was doing this for so long. So
Exactly.
that's what I suggest.
Exactly, but it's an amazing book. And so, guys, you need to get Doug's book, Mistaken Identity. It truly is it's just wonderfully laid out. You've got the action steps and what people need to do. And I think that really sort of helps people as to what they are going through and just truly helps them. My final question, Doug, is if today, of all the accomplishments that you have achieving a great success in your life today, and if tomorrow all your files were deleted, what 3 things you want people to learn from you?
I love that question. Well, I've said it. Stop trying to fix yourself. Just be yourself. You've got to distance yourself every day from worrying what people think of you. And if you just each day, one day at a time, just distance yourself from that each day. And you mentioned affirmations. That's a great way to do it. I have an affirmation that I read every day. I've been reading it since Bob gave it to me, and I refuse to worry what people are thinking about me. And people ask me, I remember a period where they're going, how you doing? Like, so this was when really things were really transforming, really changing fast. How you doing, Doug? I said, I'm so good. I'm the farthest I've ever been from worrying what people think. And Bob kept saying, he goes, Doug, he said, do not worry about what other people think about you. It'll drive you crazy. He said,
Right.
and the
Yeah.
last one was, he said, and I think is stop thinking about yourself. Okay. He said, if you stop thinking about yourself, Doug, you won't find anything wrong with yourself. He said, Doug, you're so self-centered. And so we have to stop being so centered on ourselves. We have to just go out. I just spend my days just trying to help other people and just see the good and get them to make a move. I really try to keep the attention off me, because if I think about me, I'll find all kinds of things wrong with me. And that's not going to
Right.
help anybody. So that would be, there's nothing wrong with you. Don't try to fix yourself. Just be yourself. And just try to go out there and just do good, help other people, stop worrying about yourself, and definitely stop worrying what people are thinking of you, because they're not. They're thinking about themselves.
It's always in our head that what
Yes,
people are saying.
it's in our head.
Exactly. It's our
Yeah,
perception or what people are saying.
yeah.
But absolutely, Doug. Love, amazing interview, really great conversation. So where
Thank you.
can people get in touch with you?
Yeah, I mean, you can obviously Google me online, Doug Dane. Go to my website, dougdane.com. You can order the book through my website. In that we capture your email address, because what we do is we give you a workbook with the book, and we also give you a free access. I put together a little course, a little series of videos where I'm talking to you each day about the chapter. So we give all that away if you come to our website, give us your email address, or just, and then we redirect you to, your store. But anywhere online, you can get the book, of course, Amazon, here in Canada, Indigo or Amazon, whatever you prefer. Your store can order it for you if they don't have it in stock. But yeah, just Doug Dane, and you'll find me.
Amazing. Thank you, Doug. So truly
Thank
appreciate.
you.
And thank you, everyone, for tuning in. Well, there you have it. Amazing interview with Doug Dane. So if you like the conversation, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. Why? Because of our amazing guest. Now, if you are following, if you're watching or listening on other platforms, follow us on other channels. Bye for now.